when we came back from Orlando was when we went to Universal's, the last park that we did, and there was a ride there called, it was a Harry Potter themed something, and we stood in line for, no joke, 3 hours before we got on this ride. And so my obligatory Facebook post coming out of that, I was trying to think of like the top 10 David Letterman things of like, what can you do in 3 hours of your time aside from sitting in line at a Universal ride?
Yeah.
And my wife was like, can you play a round of golf? And I was like, I've never played a round of golf in less than like 6, maybe 8 hours. I don't know how people come up with this 4-hour rule,
Yeah.
but that was my takeaway. You could probably play 9 holes maybe in the time it takes.
What were some of the other top 10 things you could do in 3 hours?
What did I come up with? My favorite was you could watch the longest Harry Potter movie that they have produced in that amount of time. You could drive to Charlotte from Wilmington.
Yes, you can.
You could fly from Wilmington to Chicago in less time. You could do your taxes. You would like that as an accounting person.
Only if your books are in really good shape, though.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Maybe
not
if
really good bookkeeping.
Maybe if you're not Chris's client. So it was, what else could you do? You know, the Macy's Day Thanksgiving Parade is just over 3 hours. And I was like, that kind of set it in. I was like, that feels like forever. So.
That's amazing. That's so good. Well, Josh, I've been looking forward to doing a podcast with you for a while.
Are we going?
We're going.
Oh, nice. Okay, cool.
I try to, just lure you in without making it feel like we're on a big production shoot or something.
Yeah, I like it. It's very Joe Rogan. Plus Zach Galifianakis here
between the two firms.
Yeah.
But man, I mean, your role with the Chamber of Business Retention and Expansion is, it's all about economic development, small business, and that's the whole point of what I do every day, and the whole point of this podcast is to promote opportunity in small business. So I'm excited to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
So I tried to tell people what your role is in economic development and small business retention, but in your words, tell us what it is that you do here. Yeah,
so I work for the Chamber of Commerce here in Wilmington, and I moved here, a little over 4 years ago to create essentially a new position that was maybe the brainchild of New Hanover County and Natalie English, our CEO, to give a dedicated person focused on helping our local small businesses as they're going through growth challenges, looking for opportunities to add staff, maybe find new real estate opportunities, and then also really try to nurture some of the up-and-coming target markets that we have in our market. And so been doing that for about 4.5 years here in Wilmington, but I've been in economic development. It was my first job coming out of Appalachian State over 15 years ago. So I've worked in Henderson County, which is kind of like a suburb of Buncombe County, Asheville, for about 7 years. And then I led an economic development organization in my hometown. I grew up in Brevard, North Carolina, which is a little small town, rural community in the Asheville region. And so it's always, for me, economic development, and kind of boil it down to job creation and encouraging taxable investments for your community, and really trying to make your community an attractive place, not just to work, but to live and be a sustainable place where you can raise a family and all that good stuff. So that's kind of maybe the ecosystem that I come from.
That's actually one of the better definitions of economic development that I've heard, is creating jobs and creating a good taxable base for investment.
Yeah, it's really not like economic developers creating jobs. It's the small business owners and the
facilitating and supporting and getting the people
just
in the right rooms and stuff like that.
That's it. Yeah.
So Brevard, that's where Sierra Nevada put one of their. Is that?
It's actually, so Sierra Nevada it's in Mills River, North Carolina.
Okay.
So if you haven't been there, it is.
I don't know why I thought that was Brevard.
It's close. It's close.
I was gonna say that's a great example of an economic development project.
It's close. Right? Like if you talk beer, Sierra Nevada is like the I think the is maybe one of the founding fathers of craft beer
And
in
it's
America.
still privately owned and argued over.
Yeah, that's right. Still privately owned and argued over. And the story that I loved about that is the owner's story is essentially a small business owner, right? And so that's how he got into craft brewing because it was a hobby, and he found a way to make it a business. But before that, I think he was just a very passionate entrepreneur, small business owner. I think his first attempts at business were, or maybe he was debating between opening a bicycle shop or opening a brewery, and fortunately the world prevailed, and we got Sierra Nevada Brewing Company. But I just love those stories of how
so cool.
people get into the businesses that they do, and everybody's so different. Everybody's got these great ideas. I'm just jealous half the time of all the amazing ideas that people come up with. But that's definitely one project that I was fortunate to work on.
Really?
As a staff member
cool.
for the Henderson County Partnership for Economic Development a long time ago.
Yeah.
And that set that region up for a lot of other investments. You've got New Belgium now in Asheville. Actually, the first brewery to technically open that was maybe outside of the Asheville region that people know about is Oscar Blues Brewery, and they opened in Brevard, North Carolina, which is where I worked as well. And so they announced their project after Sierra Nevada and New Belgium, but they were the first to open because the owner there is just a very dynamic person. Kind of does things his own way, and that's, if you ever watched the Oscar Blues brand, that was like maybe the tagline is they just kind of do things to their own beat. And so they opened up that facility, and that's really transformed Brevard, which is my hometown, which is it's a really cool thing to see your community be changed by an outside influence, and it's really put Brevard on the map for beer, bicycles, mountain biking, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. How do you get into being an economic developer? What's your story? What was your path through App State?
So my path was probably like every economic developer. We didn't really have a path, and so I went to UNC Charlotte for graduate school, and I majored in political science and religious studies. So essentially, two things you can't really talk about maybe at the dinner table with anybody.
Yeah.
And I graduated, and what are you going to do with that degree? So I had known some folks through family that talked to me about this idea of town, city, and county management.
Okay.
In North Carolina, is a way that cities and counties are run in the state, and that seemed really interesting because you're kind of involved in businesses. I mean, just any corporation, any operation is really neat. But then you've got that civic engagement, and being involved in how your community develops. And that was always an interest of mine. And so I went to grad school at Appalachian State, who has one of the best programs in the country for local government. I graduated, and my first internship in that process was with a guy named Sam Powers, who worked with the city of Asheville. He ran their economic development program, and he was a great mentor. And when I was looking for my first job, he's like, "Hey, go talk to," at the time was Andrew Tate, who's running the Henderson County Partnership for Economic Development in Henderson County, Mills River, Fletcher, Hendersonville, and he's going to be hiring somebody to fill a position there. And so that's kind of how it happened. It was just happenstance. So I went the economic development route there and loved it, getting involved. And my role there was really working with local industries. So we had a really large automotive cluster there that was manufacturing parts for all the OEMs around the country, but it was really fun to be a part of that because at the time BMW in Greenville was still kind of new. So a lot of those companies that didn't want to be located right next to BMW wanted maybe a different quality of life, looked at the Asheville market, and that's how I got involved doing industrial development. We're really strong on sites and buildings. So we had worked with a landowner, and his name was Vaughn Fitzpatrick, and he and his family had owned a tract of land for many generations in Mills River, and we worked with that family to really think about a long-term strategy for landing an economic development project that would benefit the community, and that client was Sierra Nevada Brewing Company. So like you just get involved in all these like cool things, and then you get to do other things, and then I 4 years ago, during COVID, my wife and I just growing up in the Asheville area, is like I really love this area, but I just feel like maybe I want to do something on the small business side, because I loved all those stories from the entrepreneurs and small business owners that had started super small and had grown these really cool companies in these niche markets. And at the same time, Natalie English with the Chamber of Commerce was maybe thinking about something similar. Really.
Did you know Natalie before?
I didn't.
Okay.
So I think really my only connection there, at the time, New Hanover County had hired Greenfield Development, an economic development consulting firm, Robin Spinks, who's based here in Wilmington, Wrightsville Beach, to do an economic mobility report and a strategy around economic development. And I had hired Robin's company to do a product we call it Sites and Buildings inventory and strategy for Transylvania County, where I was working in Brevard. And that was my connection maybe to the Wilmington market initially.
Got it.
And so when I saw the Wilmington Chamber post a position, my first call was to Robin and asked, do you know anything about this? And she's like, well, actually, I'm on the
board.
I'm writing. I'm helping the county through the process of writing that report, and she had a lot of details, and it was really. It seemed, and is, just an exciting place to be from a small business perspective, from an economic development perspective. A lot of team members in this community that are all just super approachable, for one, just good people, but also just incredibly intelligent, smart, and want to help make Wilmington and this region the best it could possibly be.
So it was a brand new position that hadn't existed here, or existed shared between other organizations?
No, I think it was brand new. And the idea, the chamber and the county, frankly, were coming out of a few natural disasters. Obviously hurricanes. We're coming out of COVID-19, and there was just this enormous weight on how do we help small businesses be successful in light of some of those things. How can we give a more dedicated focus to some of those smaller companies that we need to listen to, we need to respond to, that we need to be engaged with, and so it was really the product of some unfortunate things, and why my position exists, I guess. But so it's been a fun journey for me.
Yeah, and a lot has changed. In just a short period. 4 years. The amount of actual physical development of infrastructure and but then just the ecosystem of entrepreneurs and small businesses and I've only been a part of it for probably about that long as well. So I don't really know anything different other than being part of this this past 5 years, 6 years now, which is been pretty wild. But
Yeah, it's been. I'm kind of in your camp. I moved here when things were accelerating, and things have continued along that path. I think there's probably some inflection points, and a lot of folks have been on your podcast that have been more responsible and directly engaged in that. But yeah, it is exciting to be able to see rapid transformation coming from a rural community. Before Wilmington, you're constantly the process moves a little slower in terms of your development path, and it's maybe a little bit easier to respond to things in that way. But in Wilmington, it's exciting if you're driving around. The likelihood of your corridor, like Market Street, being different from 1 month to the next is pretty high. You get to see planning in action. You get to see infrastructure development in action. Mm-hmm. You get to see a lot of different people coming into our community and making an impact. So you're a great example, right? And so you're sitting here at Market Street. This building looked a lot different than it did just a little bit ago. So thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. What are some of the core activities that you do? So we talked about helping create jobs, helping create investment in the community, which is that's the ultimate output. But what do you do during each day, each week to try to make that stuff come to fruition?
Yeah. So the way that I describe it, most economic development organizations have what's called a business retention and expansion program. Mm-hmm. So it's really it's a big long name, but it's essentially I get to go out and call on small business owners and go visit, meet with them, talk about what their challenges are, what opportunities they see in the marketplace, and if they have challenges, I get to be a lot of times just the connector in that puzzle. It could be infrastructure, it could be maybe financing, it could be regulatory issues. Maybe there's an issue with NCDOT that never happens, right? It's just kind of an ad hoc opportunity for us to get in front of small business owners and ask, how can we help make this community better for you? And so we've got a really good network of partners that we rely on. I think you've had some other guests on that are part of the Small Business Coalition, and that's been operating for long before I got here, but essentially just the network of entrepreneurial and small business focused organizations that have tools in their toolkit that help small business owners grow. And so it's a little bit of everything. It could be helping a small business owners find a new place if they've outgrown their current location. And we've got some really good commercial brokers in the community, but sometimes that place doesn't always exist yet, and so it's not always, especially on the light industrial side. Yeah, that's we don't have a whole lot of available space that is maybe 10,000 square feet and less for our light or niche manufacturers that are making cool stuff. To find places to go that's easy. It's not quite as easy as just going to realtor.com and finding a house, and so it's a little bit more of a got to be patient, try to build connections with folks in the development community that maybe have some opportunities coming available. So that's one. We've got a phenomenal, I think I mentioned workforce, we've got a phenomenal story on the labor side for workforce development. We've got Cape Fear Community College is one of the top community colleges in the state. We've got UNCW, so we've got talent here. We've got the ability to have talent here, but sometimes it's maybe a specialized program, or I need an employee that can be trained on a specific machine or piece of equipment. So we've got some really good customized training opportunities at Cape Fear Community College. But some of those programs just, unless you're involved in that space, you may not know that as a small business owner, and so that's really our job at the chamber and other organizations to try to make sure that we're making sure some of those business owners are aware of those opportunities.
So you mentioned space and talent as some examples. Meeting with the small businesses, what are some of the main themes that come across when they talk about just some of the challenges or struggles that they're trying to overcome, would you say?
Well, it depends on everything. So every business is different, and so the challenges of a tech employer or aspiring tech employer are going to be a lot different than somebody that's in the service industry providing XYZ service, or if you're in a restaurant setting or something like that. So sometimes I'd say the broad category is sales. How can I leverage the tools in our wheelhouse to increase our visibility within the community? That's one. Workforce is a big thing, especially on the tech side. We've got a phenomenal university system here, but it's a highly specialized. If it's a highly specialized setting, like AI is if you hear that a lot now. There aren't that many experts on AI because it is so new, and so maybe there's opportunities that you have to reach outside the marketplace. So I love how our chamber CEO talks about talent. It's really more about how do you grow it here, how do you retain it here, and then how do you help employers recruit talent that we don't have here. And so I think that's maybe the three buckets that we focus on from a talent perspective.
And what types of, we've been involved in a couple projects of, businesses moving into Wilmington. And so I guess, it'd be cool to hear about a couple projects that you've been involved in, and then also, why are they choosing Wilmington? Yeah,
so I think on the why piece, it's again pretty different for every company.
Yeah.
I think the natural growth of our community is really attractive to a lot of businesses. So it's in my opinion, I think it's just a great sweet spot. It's the Goldilocks of communities. It's not too small, it's not too big, it's very approachable. If you spend a little bit of time in Wilmington, it's really possible to really form a network, get to know everybody in a great way, and be comfortable here. I think the reason that people maybe move a business here, especially if you're retail or a small business owner that's looking to try to scale, you've got that natural market building here, so you've got that natural population increase in Wilmington. So there's the maybe the wind on your back from a sales perspective. A lot of people are just familiar with Wilmington because they came to college here. You're a UNCW grad, right?
Yep.
I think that's just the number of times that I hear a small business owner that's looking to open a new business here, or maybe open a new office here. They're headquartered somewhere else but want to open an office. It's, hey, I went to UNCW and I've been trying to get my way back to UNCW in Wilmington, and so. Yep. That's a piece of the puzzle. A couple of the projects that maybe people know or have seen about, read about, or iFly was an interesting one with Patrick McGuire and that group. He's a veteran based in. He was coming out of the military. Was in. The Marsoc facility up in Onslow County, and was looking for business opportunities that maybe leveraged his passions. I think he was in the airborne, I believe, and was looking to maybe service that market, give a new facility for the military to use for training, for jumping out of airplanes of all things. And iFly is one of those things, And so they targeted Wilmington because of our growth, our tourism, our proximity to the bases. So you had a mix of those aspects of why they maybe chose here. And then worked on maybe supporting the regulatory components of that project, and now they're up and running, and it's really I love that we have another thing to do with my kids for one.
Have you guys been?
We haven't been actually. We've gone to a few of the STEM events, but we haven't actually booked our time to go do that. My kids are a little too small to do that at the moment.
It's on the list, though.
Yeah, it's on the list for sure. It's on my list because I've never jumped out of a plane. My wife has, but I don't think I have the courage to do that. And so
I did it.
That's a more sane thing for me to do.
I did it once, and I got to say that I think when you're on the little plane flying up, that's the scariest part because you're sitting there and you're just like, am I really about to jump out of this thing? Yeah. And then you're in a tandem, and I remember the guy, he you shimmy out to the door, and he's sitting on the step, and I was literally I wasn't sitting on anything. I was just attached to the tether. Yeah. And I was just like, that was scary.
I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. So that's a unique reason why they're here. It's not like one reason.
Yeah.
The other project I'm really proud of is FedUp Foods. They located in the former True Colors facility over in the Greenfield neighborhood, and they located here for a lot of different reasons, but the number one reason we had a great facility that was available, right? And so that's there's all kinds of reasons why businesses move or locate, but occasionally you just have someone, George Taylor had made the investment in that building and unfortunately didn't materialize for that business, but it really paved the way for FedUp Foods to be in Wilmington, and I'm just super thrilled that they've made an investment in that facility to continue the life in that building. I've been involved in lots of different projects, but I love infill development. I love the idea that you can maybe go in a building that's maybe undervalued or underutilized and maybe keep some of the history of the building, so not a complete tear down or anything, but really find a new purpose for it. And I just love that story for that building specifically. And so that's a reason we had a good building. But also, FedUp is headquartered in Western North Carolina, in Marshall, North Carolina. They've got a facility in East Tennessee as well, and so I just love the story for North Carolina as that very entrepreneurial company. They manufacture. They're a private label manufacturer of kombucha, functional sodas, cold coffees, and they chose to try to continue to expand in North Carolina. So they're anchoring Western North Carolina and the East Coast in different ways. And so, but that infill development project wouldn't be possible without the city of Wilmington. They've got, before I got here, maybe right as I moved to Wilmington, the city of Wilmington was working with a lot of different groups, Wilmington Business Development and Wilmington Downtown Inc. and the Chamber, to maybe introduce some new development codes. Urban mixed use was one of those, I believe. I might be getting my history wrong and my facts wrong, but that planning designation has allowed some infill development to occur that probably wouldn't have fit any of the other development codes prior to that. I think the big impetus in that was the soda pop district and the former Coca-Cola building, and trying to figure out a use category that supported the redevelopment of properties that maybe were underutilized and try to get small businesses, try to get business going in those areas. And I think it's really obviously benefited the soda pop district, but those same changes also allowed for some redevelopment at the FedUp Foods facility. So without that maybe flexibility and allowing some niche manufacturing, and we wouldn't be successful on keeping those sort of projects moving along. So it really is a balance between the private sector and the public sector to get those projects done, and it's not easy.
No.
There's lots of debate and lots of public meetings, a lot of public feedback, I'm sure. But I think that's kind of the fun part of what economic developers get to do, is try to bridge the gap between the public sector and the private sector in meaningful ways.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, first off, the Coke building in the soda pop district as a great example of a good infill project, and with the FedUp Foods. What was you guys sometimes have like code names for the projects, right? Like Project Penguin or something. Was that one of them?
FedUp Foods. So my code words. So
are they your code words, or are they
the reason economic developers will often use a code word is when a company's making a location decision that obviously impacts a lot of things and their competitors, and so trying to provide some confidentiality there. In the world of small business, things aren't quite as critical as maybe our partners at Wilmington Business Development, who we're working with. Often, Fortune 10 companies, as it turns out.
Exactly.
Keeping those details confidential is incredibly important. For continuity's sake, I always try to give a code name, and FedUp Foods was Project Marshall.
Project Marshall, coming from Marshall,
North
Carolina.
Very like clandestine, right? So that's where that.
I've always enjoyed hearing those.
So it's really just our attempt to make sure that any information that's discussed is coming from the client and not from economic developers or anything like that. So those are fun things.
And then on the like you mentioned, kind of or alluded to, on the larger scale, you got Amazon coming in and building up a distribution center, and we got to hear a little bit about that at the Power Breakfast. And the CEO from FedUp Foods was at the Power Breakfast as well. Which is pretty cool to hear about. But
and I think that's the really neat thing when you kind of see it all kind of come together. David Gray is the CEO of FedUp Foods, and he's just a powerhouse of a CEO, and so it's a company. It's great, and you see jobs being created in the building, but it's really about the people that are hired for those positions, for one, and then you get to see these really cool people come to town and make Wilmington their home, and give new life to a whole new industry. I think FedUp Foods is. It's I think they're on pace, or maybe they are the largest fermented beverage. How would I say it? They're the largest functional sodas manufacturer in the country now, or on their way. I've really fumbled that one, but so it's kind of a new industry coming to Wilmington.
It's a huge shift in the market. It's
a new innovation in the food space here. So
absolutely.
You've got a tremendous amount of cold storage. With the North Carolina port hereby, you've made some incredible investments in the cold chain. They actually have the cold chain summit. It might be this week or next. That really targets.
And that's happening here in Wilmington?
Happens. Cool. It's happened here in Wilmington ever since I moved here. And I think it was the brainchild of Cliff Pryon with Wilmington Business Development, maybe when he was at the North Carolina port.
How cool!
And so
awesome.
it's continued and it's grown, but they invite their customers and clients to hear about that industry. And I think the FedUp Foods project is just a really cool one because it's kind of a different take on North Carolina food.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit of biotech. Randall Johnson, I saw you on your podcast. Yep. He reminded me when we first met with FedUp Foods. It was like, hey, this is like brewing. That's like the first biotech, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
It's like, oh, okay, yeah. So it's a little bit of everything, but I'm really excited about that sector and what brewing. We've got some established. We have some established kombucha companies here. We've got some really fantastic beer that's being produced here. Mm-hmm. It's just kind of fun to think about, what could be the next thing in the food space that might take off. And so, yeah, Wilmington's a great spot for it because we got a supply chain built out for logistics of just getting material here, mm-hmm. And then you've got just a growing market, so it's a good place to be in that space. We don't do a whole lot of just active recruiting, especially on the small business. Most of my time is spent with existing companies in Wilmington through that business retention expansion effort. But we do some business attraction on the small business side. So I'll spend a little bit of time in the natural products space because of our success with FedUp Foods, talking with other companies that are in that same supply chain or that same sector. Yeah. So we do get involved in a little bit of that, but it's fun to see how that might transform Wilmington, at least in that part of the county.
Yeah, and you mentioned it again, but we haven't specifically talked about it. Is we've got the port here, mm-hmm. we've got ILM, and there's still quite a bit of rail as well. Not as much as there used to be, but there still is. How does having the port, like specifically, has there been any projects that you've been a part of that? Like having the port here was a key determinant, or it's just another one of those. It's like, hey, looking at the whole picture, like this just makes sense.
Well, I mean, so we've got for the small business side, having the port here is important because you've got on the small business side, it's more the freight providers. When you've got mm-hmm. The North Carolina Economic Development Partnership, which is that statewide organization, and our peers at Wilmington Business Development, who are really charged with corporate site selection. Yep. Yeah, I think those are the type level projects where the port is incredibly invaluable. So you've got your proximity and your specializations at the port. But when you get down to the small business level, I don't know if we've got anybody specifically that I'm trying to think of, go through the Rolodex of companies that have specifically chosen Wilmington because of that port. It's more if I want to be involved in the supply chain and logistics industry, mm-hmm. and we're strong in that sector because of that port in Wilmington, and so we're certainly having a building or having an office close by to the port, because you might have some deliveries that go in and out. We've got the Wilmington Chamber started a supply chain and logistics council a number of years ago because we had a few members, small business owners, that this is what they do. They move product in and out of Wilmington or this region, and they wanted to have better connections with other businesses that were in the same industry, maybe facing some of the same challenges from a workforce and talent perspective, and wanted that camaraderie, and that's certainly invaluable. So we've had a number of companies in Wilmington that just, or maybe even outside of just New Hanover County, that want to be involved in that sector,
Yep.
and have peers that they can talk to about, oh man, I'm having a hard time hiring drivers with the appropriate licenses. What are you guys doing to recruit? And it could be they've got an easy solution, or it could be, hey, we're in the same situation. How can we maybe work
maybe
together?
we should collaborate.
Right, maybe we should collaborate. And so
Yeah.
I think that's really the neat thing about some of the assets here. It's and again, going back to the Wilmington thing, it's there's 1,000 reasons why a company will begin the conversation that they want to open up a new small business here in Wilmington, and that's just like one of them. And so there's maybe usually 5 or 10 reasons that drive somebody to be in this market.
Yep.
The thing I love about it specifically is it's just Wilmington, like where I grew up in the Asheville region. There's that current of quality of life that runs through everything. That quality of life gets thrown out a lot in economic development circles, and the joke is everybody's got quality of life. It's just how you define it. But I think if you grow up in a place like Wilmington, or if you grow up in a place like I grew up in Asheville, you kind of get spoiled in a way of, this is a pretty special place to be.
Really is.
It's not often or
Really is.
or unique I think it is unique that you can just hop over and see the intercoastal or the ocean in a few minutes drive, and you've got a really amazing historic downtown, a river. This doesn't just happen everywhere, and it certainly hasn't developed everywhere. And so you're trying to find that balance between of protecting and building that sustainable community, and just embracing the neat things about Wilmington that tend to drive people to want to come.
Absolutely.
Open a business after they come visit is really nice.
Yeah, it definitely is a nice advantage to have.
Yeah,
I mean, doing economic development in the middle of nowhere could be got some challenges to contend with.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there's some positives to that as well, depending on what they're looking for. One thing I was talking about with Randall, and you brought that up, was, what he's doing with biotech is very much economic development. And as I was listening and thinking more about what I wanted to talk with you is, there's so many people involved, and a lot of what you do is coordinating and connecting and listening and trying to get people in the right space that I often would imagine it's hard to sometimes get recognition for things that you've done. And so how do you measure your success, and how do you present that success to other stakeholders that are supporting what you do?
So I don't really care about success, like we're being recognized for success. I think that's kind of I don't think too many economic developers kind of focus that way, and I like Randall's a great example of that. He often kind of flies under the radar, involved in lots of different conversations, and not seeking recognition. So that's kind of beside the point. I think how do we measure is job creation and investment. And so when you've got like a FedUp Foods, for example, there's a tangible job creation component to that, and there's investment that you can track for those sorts of things. So this kind of makes it simple, I guess.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, you've always been one low key really funny, which
Thanks. Yeah.
definitely. Some of the emails that I've been a part of and just conversations, you crack me up, and some of your presentations. But I guess in your humility, I mean, I wasn't trying to be recognition of, hey, look at me, but hey, business is business, and you've got to create some a business case for, hey, like, why support us? Like, why continue to contribute to what we're doing here.
Yeah.
And I think that's, I mean, you've got an incredible mindset for, like, based on what you said. But I can imagine that it can get maybe a little political, or a little tough at some points to be like, yes, look at all this stuff that we've done, and we've all been a part of it.
Yeah.
I guess.
Well, I think that's the beauty of the Wilmington Chamber of Commerce, and so when I kind of think about the chamber, I feel like it's the hammer in your toolkit as a business owner. And so when you're joining a chamber, or if you're trying to connect with me and work on the small business side, it's really thinking about. I always view the chamber as working on problems that maybe a business alone can't tackle. And so when I look at the program work that our board of directors and Natalie have really maybe tackled, it's been talent. We've got,
big time.
I think Laura.
That's like a perfect example of much bigger than one business can handle, or one even industry, so to speak.
Yeah. So you've got, I think Laura was on the podcast and talking about CLDA, and just one business would not be able to maybe do something like that on their own, which is, it's a valuable program, but that partnership is where you really get the synergies to see like real progress happen. Public policy is another one. There's with growth, you've got infrastructure demands. You've got, on my side, you've got we've got limited inventory from a real estate perspective, industrial buildings on the smaller side. How can we as a chamber be advocates for things that move the needle on some of those bigger pressing issues that are important to business owners, but as a small business owner, you might not have the same voice as if you partnered up with 1,200 of your best friends and participated in your chamber in that way. And so I think when we talk about success and accolades and things like that, I think we always at the chamber, it's what is our chamber doing as a collective whole, and how are we working together to maybe identify the gaps in our business ecosystem, and how are we making connections in ways that hopefully move the needle for a small business owner. I like small business owners because it's different than I think you came out of one of the big five, right? Deloitte so if you're working with larger corporations, you've got CEOs and human resource professionals. You got a CFO, and they've got staff all behind them.
Yep, you got functional reporting, divisional reporting, regional reporting. I mean,
you got the whole thing.
You got it all, yeah.
And so, which is great. I mean, it's a lot, but it's also there's you've got manpower to do a lot of different things. And on the small business side, especially for economic developers, is you kind of feel like you're maybe just an extension of someo's staff.
Yeah, dude, you're a fractional executive.
Maybe can I join the fractional?
You are.
Group? Yeah.
No, I mean, I just realized that.
Yeah.
You truly are.
Yeah. So that's why I like the small business side is you get to. You get to help someone work on an issue if they, not everything's straightforward, especially when it comes to, growing a business for maybe the first time, and just having somebody is like, hey, you need to connect with this person because they're going through the same issue, or it could be, I'm trying to think of an example. Someone's dealing with that supply chain is a good example. If someone's having a similar issue recruiting a specific position, I've often probably connected with about 4 or 5 other companies that are doing the same thing, and so maybe there's some there's need for some collaboration that maybe isn't working at the moment. So that's one of the areas. So that's fun. And then on the day-to-day side, we've got some just, I mean, UNCW, I think you've had a lot of my colleagues, maybe not my chamber colleagues, but members of the coalition on this podcast. And one of my favorite things that we do as a group is we promote the 1 Million Cups entrepreneurial weekly coffee meetings. And have you had Jack Fleming on?
No, we have not.
Okay, that might be someone, but I think that's one of my favorite cups of coffee every week, is because you get to listen to somebody who is just in the very early stages of opening a business. It could be a retail mom and pop sort of thing, or it could be like your next tech startup that's presenting at 1 Million Cups. And so it's a really cool collaboration of all of our the UNCW CIE, the Small Business Center at Cape Fear Community College, Network for Entrepreneurs in Wilmington, Chamber, all trying to facilitate and see that startup ecosystem continue to evolve here. So that's a neat thing.
So as we kind of move towards closing down, what would you say on the business side, because I know you're a family man and you'd probably say something about your family, but what are you most proud of? Biggest accomplishment or something since you've been here in Wilmington?
Yeah, the FedUp Food I think that's a cool. I love. I think they're going to really transform their industry, and I think they already have. And I'm really excited that they chose Wilmington to start up here, start a new beverage culture here. So I think that's a cool thing. Trying to think of other components. I've been on the coalition now since I've started here. So I'm really proud that our coalition of small business resource providers continues to meet and collaborate every month, and I think that's just it's not maybe a really sexy win or anything like that from an economic development perspective, but I just think there's so much power in bringing people together, breaking down silos, and I think that's what that group does really well. Just to have casual conversations. So I'm really proud of that piece. So it's Wilmington's just got such a dynamic market, and I think there's just so much cool opportunity here for people to really kind of live into what they want to do.
Heck yeah. Well, Josh, thanks for taking the time to.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
And thank you for everything you do in our community.
Yeah, thanks, Chris.
Yeah. All right.
Cool. All right.